This chapter deals with some of the more complex punctuation marks. First of all, let's tackle the comma. Used properly, commas can make our writing more fluent and accurate. A general rule is that commas should be used to indicate to the reader that they need to pause. This can help the reader to understand what they are reading. Let's have a look at an example. In the following sentence, there is no comma.
As the player ran onto the pitch, the crowd went wild.
Yes, this sentence makes sense, but listen to what happens if we add a comma to indicate a pause.
As the player ran onto the pitch, the crowd went wild.
It just makes the sentence a bit clearer. We should also use a comma when quotation marks are used mid-sentence, as in,
The player thought to himself, I have to play well today.
the comma would go after the himself and before the opening of the quotation marks.
Another reason commas are used is to separate sections of a sentence. For example, you would use them to separate items in a list. Commas can also be used as brackets. These are called parenthetic commas, if you want the technical term. This means that they separate out the part of the sentence that adds extra detail. But the sentence could survive without it. Let's have a look at an example.
My grandma, who is barking mad, is one of my favourite people.
The who is barking mad part tells us a bit about Grandma, so it can be put in parenthetic commas. However, the sentence makes more sense without this detail. Listen.
My grandma is one of my favourite people.
Parenthetic commas are a great tool for making your writing more interesting, and if you use them correctly, you'll impress those examiners as well. Commas can also be used when writing out addresses. Some people don't, and that is acceptable too. But the rule is you should either use them all of the time or leave them out all of the time.
Now for the two punctuation marks that many people are scared of, the colon and the semicolon. First of all, let's deal with the colon. This is the one that looks like two full stops on top of each other. A colon is used to introduce things. An example of this would be in a list. In the sentence, the student's bag contained her lunch, a folder, some chewing gum and a hairbrush. The colon should come after the word contained because then you have a list of things that are in the bag.
Colons can also be used to qualify a sentence by introducing meaning or an explanation. An example would be, he was utterly miserable that day. He had fallen down 3 stairs and missed his bus. The colon goes after the word day, because after that the explanation is given as to why he was feeling miserable. If you are writing a drama script, a colon is also used to separate the character from their dialogue, such as Hamlet, to be or not to be.
The semicolon looks like a comma with a full stop above it. It has two main uses. The first is to join 2 or more sentences which are linked. In this instance, they are essentially used to replace the conjunction. An example would be,
The school term had seemed very long. The students were exhausted.
The other use a semicolon has is that it can separate items in a list when you need to use punctuation within phrases in your list. For example,
I've travelled to a lot of places. I've been to Tokyo, Japan, Vancouver, Canada, Cairo, Egypt, and Glasgow, Scotland.
Just commas in this sentence wouldn't work, as you need a way to keep the cities and the countries together. The comma serves the purpose of listing the cities and countries. The semicolon makes it clear that you don't think Tokyo and Japan are different places.
Our final tip is about brackets. The rule for brackets is very simple. You can use a pair of brackets to enclose information in a sentence that is not strictly needed, but tells you something of interest. They can help you make your sentence a little bit clearer.